Welcome back to another episode of Unscripted, the go-to podcast for those flipping the script and taking the unexpected path. I'm your host, Jessica Bergio, holistic life and business coach, author, speaker, and self-proclaimed high-energy hype girl. Each week, I'm bringing you inside. No gatekeeping here. I'll touch on proven holistic business strategies, powerful mindset shifts that have led my clients through massive transformations, and no BS conversation with industry leaders designed to help you get out of your own way to actively pursue a life of purpose. If you're ready to ditch the limitations at the door, hit follow and get ready to be activated to step boldly towards your big goals. Now let's dive in. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited for today's guest. She has high energy. She's also a mom, and she's someone who's recently come into my world. We got lucky to meet each other at a Girlfriends in Business event by my girlfriend, Lori Harder, who I talk about all the time. If you're in my world, her and I go way, way back, and she always curates the coolest events, which bring the coolest people together. So that's super fun. Brittany, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm great. I'm so good. Thanks for having me. I love connecting with you. It's an honor, babe.
We've been having a lot of fun on these weekly calls, and I know you're like me and you're super busy, but a little bit busier than me. You're a mom of four. I always love friends that are overachievers. I'm like, you go, girl, you go do the thing. My friends that had 3 and 4 kids were like, stop at 1. And I was like, okay.
No, that fell into my lap how it happened. And I'm Enneagram 3. So like you said, it's the overachiever in me. I can do it all.
Right? Fair. So I love that we were just chatting before we hit record, like all good podcasts start with a good solid chit chat, catch up sesh around what you've got going on in your world, but really the lack that you see that's out in the world right now for other moms like us who are looking to still be boss. I won't use the other word, bees in our life, but also who really want to find a community where we can be unapologetic about wanting to run a family boss life and then also curate one, whether that's in person, like you and I share a brick and mortar history, or online. So chat with us a little bit about who you are, your history, and where you're at in business right now.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Brittany Burnham. I am 41, about to be 42. And damn, things change once you hit that. But you know what? That's not slowing me down. I am a gym owner for almost 10 years, and I am transitioning into the online space with Mom Boss Maximizer is my podcast. My gym is called Power. It's spelled out PWR, Performance Wellness Recovery. And I've experienced a lot of obstacles that I've just have used that as my experience to transform hundreds and thousands of women inside of my gym and now outside of my gym. So I'm just super excited to share this experience because damn, it's hard. It's a lot. And this is where I'm seeing I want to give mothers and entrepreneurs permission that like we can do more and we can be more. And I had that feeling almost 2 years ago when I moved into my brand new facility, which I'm in right now. There's been a lot of change and I want to be able to be vulnerable with so many women because that was the catalyst to my start of entrepreneurship when I was a single mother who built my gym.
Wow. Is that kind of where the framework I know that you teach now, is that where it came from? That obstacle, that challenge to work through the changes obviously that have happened when you become a mom, and then also the obstacles that stand in your way now that life isn't just about you anymore, but you're a huge proponent for like obstacles have opportunities waiting for us if we can maybe shift our perspective around what's happening to us versus what we can do with what's happening.
Absolutely. That was the moment when the traumas started happening. Growing up, I had, the all-American family and the white picket fence and both parents and very privileged, middle class, but my parents were workers. And I come from a very strong background of women. And it wasn't until in my 20s, I was in grad school in Philadelphia. And that's when my father came out and with living a double life. And I found out I have a Black brother. I mean, when I say double life, like deep unpack, some crazy stuff. That was like the first obstacle where I had to make this decision. I had the problem solving skills. I was a D1 athlete. I was in grad school. So I've always been an overachiever. But what I was finding out in my 20s when I first started really dealing with hardship is how I was coping with them. And how did that overcoming look like? I was doing it the wrong way. Like I was busying myself. I was putting myself into work, and the trajectory of that busyness and suppressing those feelings and not dealing with those traumas turned into a lot of great things. However, now I'm really like trying to use that and help other women because what I did back then is not going to help me now. So like that moment with everything with my family continued until my older 20s. And when I became a single mother, I was a survivor in a domestic violence relationship. And that was because I never dealt with my father. So it's just those patterns that I'm now at 41 years old starting to really realize I have to break this pattern. I have to, because I can't do what I want to do and be who I want to be and impact more women and transform more women until I'm fully really just understanding who I am and that awareness. So that's where everything sparked. And it was in my 20s where I experienced a lot of obstacles and boom, Hit It With Brit was formed when I was living in my mom's basement on food stamps. Very, very humbling experience because I was an athletic director of an all girls charter high school. At 28 years old, I was really successful. And then here I am, like in this horrible relationship, get pregnant, and I knew I've got a bigger purpose and I'm better than this and I'm capable of more. And that's the message I started giving to women when I started Hit It With Brit because I changed my mindset. It all started with that. That was the ultimate key of just transforming the mindset. And then everything started to fall into place with my body. And then it just, the puzzle, the pieces like came together. And I had no clue about business. I had no clue what I was doing. But when you have a purpose and you go deep into those whys, nothing's stopping you.
It's so true. I love that. And so many people are probably nodding their head of like being really passionate or driven, having gone through, say, an experience like you shared or multiple experiences that have led to have these aha awakenings or dark night of the soul moments even, right? Like you talk about being on food stamps. That's a moment where you're like, holy shit, it's this or what? Like the only question to ask then is how can it get better? One of my girlfriends, Joanna Vargas, she lives quite a great life and she still always asks herself that question. How much better can it get in moments of craziness and in moments of pure gratitude? That's the question she always comes back to. And I know you're human. You go through different phases where you're feeling the feels too, but your mindset is stronger to the point where you know how to get yourself out of sticky situations, whether it's something going on internally or maybe it's external and something that wasn't quote unquote your fault, but having that mindset to become aware of it, take action and do something about it are framework pieces that a lot of people can't find their way out of. Like, I don't know what to do, the right thing that I should be doing. And that's why communities are so important. And it's why I know you're so passionate about the community that you created. Share with us what that feels like and what that looks like in that group.
With Mom Boss Maximizer?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that exactly. Being vulnerable and knowing that we're all experiencing a lot of peaks and valleys. And most importantly, we have to celebrate even just a little win. Like just getting some mothers who feel like I did at that point of not knowing what and how and stuck. And I'm like, it's about the who. And that's when like having these communities is that permission of support because we know a lot of us can all shake our head. Who sometimes are the hardest people to get support from is your family and your friends. I remember when I started here with Brit, it was just like, oh, are you doing this full time? Is this a little passion project? Is this a hobby? And honestly, I'm still experiencing that now with this transition because of like how I grew so rapidly with Head with Brit and now stepping back and really putting my team into work at the gym. It's that support that you think you're going to get from the people who've been surrounding you. And sometimes it just isn't there. So creating it. And I'm just like, this is what I'm missing because it's more like for me, there's more to life than a gym and health and fitness. It goes deeper than that. I think it starts with that. It absolutely starts with like the holistic health. And then there's so much more to unpack. Because what I'm hearing in my community, number one thing is time freedom. That's what everyone wants. And just struggling with time, struggling with their schedule, juggling all the hats, and we do it all. And the people pleasing tendencies. So all the same frustrations. And we don't want it to be a bitch fest. More so like, how can we take action and help each other and support each other?
And often just having those open conversations are enough to get you through the day to feel like you're not alone. Because often when you're dealing with life, you feel very alone. That's where those feelings of overwhelm and anxiousness stem from. You know, I'm the only one that's probably dealing with this. If we look around and everyone's picking weeds in the field, you're like, everyone's picking weeds. We're all miserable. But we always like to compare ourselves to what other people might be doing or not be doing. And that gives us angst. That puts us in our feels, makes us feel like we're disempowered. And I know that even just being a part of other people's conversations allows for us to sometimes pour back into them when maybe we're the one who thought we were going to be needing to receive today. Like you were on one of my calls earlier this week, and actually it was my cousin who shared a pretty gnarly story about a situation that she's going through. And I know for a fact that was the first time she shared that ever outside of maybe her close inner circle, which I think actually she doesn't even have a very big inner circle anymore, because our friends get numb to who we are and kind of like maybe our normal go-to behavior patterns, and they don't want to hear it anymore, or they don't have what you might need. And it's like that famous quote when people talk about like, oh, your mom's been telling you that same piece of advice for 20 years, but you hear it from Tony Robbins on stage that you paid $1,000 for. Now it makes sense. It's the same thing of when we're looking around and we think that people don't know what's right for us, or we feel like we're the only ones stuck in something. That vulnerability piece of being able to share or confide, or to even just say, hey, I don't need anybody to fix it. I just need to feel supported. That can go a million miles. And a lot of people are searching for communities like this. And I know it to be true for myself. Like I've been a part of some really great ones. And then at one point I realized I needed to create my own. And I've had a variety of different ones over the years that stood for different things. I had one that was more personal branding, people who were afraid to show up and take up space and, say, hey, I am worthy of creating a brand around my name and who I am and what I do and what I believe. And then there's groups like we had on Monday where we're talking about the real shit, the wellness piece of it, the mindset piece. And then there's the groups like you with moms and women who want to feel unapologetic as to be okay being those overachievers. Because we know that it can go both ways of like, why are you bothering? Why are you doing all that? You're always so busy. It's like people put a label on being busy as bad. You talked about people not supporting you. Like I have even people in my life, and they probably don't listen to podcasts, so whatever, who are like, oh, I don't reach out anymore. You seem so busy. And it feels like a very negative way that they're saying it. And I'm like, I'm not busy. I'm just living my life. And if you want to get in, let me know when you're free. Send me a calendar invite.
It's so funny because I was talking to Lindsay Schwartz about this when we were at Lori's event. And I was like, thank you so much for writing me back. That means a lot. She's like, you know what? People really think I'm really busy. I do get back to people. And it's that like just perception of what they're seeing, maybe just on social media or just assuming, which we never want to assume. I say that on my podcast all the time. And that's not so much like the validation I need, but it's more so like I truly, genuinely want to connect with you and want to help you because I know what it's done for me. Finally, I'm taking initiative and reaching out to people and leaning in and asking for help and for support. And I remember the moments when I first started Hit It with Britt, when I put it out there about my story, going from this to that, from obstacle to opportunity, we'll say, and to be a single mom. And so many women just were so appreciative and they were so scared to talk about it. And I get it. I was so scared. Once it became a scar and it wasn't a scab, that's when I was able to share it. And when I heard that, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I can speak on it with conviction, with confidence, because now I'm ready to transform and help others because we're so quiet. So like, let's normalize what communication can be. And that's where that permission comes.
I love that. It's so important because when we see possibility for other people, even if they're only a step or two ahead of you, say you're in a sticky situation like you were in, but you meet other women who have come out on the other side and right, it's a scar now, not a scab or an open wound anymore. And you're like, oh my God, there's hope. So it's even more about seeing what's possible for yourself in different containers, whether it's something as extreme as that, or whether it has to do with being a brand new business person, or maybe you have a random idea of something. You just need to get around other people that can show you what's possible. And that's always what I've referred to as, the two people we're referring to, Lindsay Schwartz and Lori Harder, as expanders, people who speak openly about finding other expanders in their life to show them what's possible. And then they reach back behind and they're like, who wants to come? And they do that through a variety of events. They both have podcasts too. You and I obviously have podcasts. And I think just creating conversation around things that maybe were taboo, even just 5, 6, 7 years ago, definitely 20 years ago when I was younger and never talked about in my childhood. Nobody talked about the gnarly shit that went on. You sucked it up and you made do.
And that's where those negative patterns started. And that's why we want to break them now. And that's what I'm doing it for, is for my children. That's the legacy I'm trying to extend. I want them to see me being a badass. I want them to see me overcoming. Even if they see me cry before, I used to be like, oh, don't see me cry. But now I'm like, yeah, I'm stressed out and I have to check myself. So I'm not taking out on you, but also just to know that I want them to have that resilience, because that is one of my top 5 things to be in the entrepreneurial world, is that resilience and adaptability, because shit changes all the time. The uncertainty of life, like with the pandemic and just everything from being a mother and being an entrepreneur, like it's very relatable.
Yeah, so relatable. I was even going to say to the point of the behavior your dad was doing back in the days, like even that was something that you just didn't talk about. Like that was something that, not that men could get away with by any stretch, but people did things like that and it just wasn't talked about because maybe the women had to like keep a straight face. And it's so crazy what now that shit would be put on social media. You'd be put on blast. You'd be on like Reddit, like you'd be on Us Weekly.
When I read things on narcissism, I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I should have had that 20 years ago.
They didn't teach that class in high school. So, who are some mentors or people in your life that have inspired you to help take action or light the path for you to step into where you're at now with starting your podcast, getting really brave about creating this community in your business? Where have you found support?
I started when I was with a MLM company. At that point where I was like, okay, I can start investing because I was doing everything, finding all the resources for free, listening to podcasts, reading books. But it started with John Maxwell. He was the first person, the first book I read on leadership. And then The Five Dysfunctions of a Team was another book I started reading. But John Maxwell, loved the way he was speaking. And then it got deeper into, I was like, okay, I just gravitate towards women too. Don't get me wrong. I love my men. But then I was like, who in this space, in this personal development space, because I started having that shiny object syndrome of like, okay, I just want to invest in everyone. So and then I started listening to Lori Earn Your Happy, my friend Melissa Martin. Do you know who Melissa Martin is?
I do, yeah. Horror, small world.
I know. So we were connected with Advocare. And so like in the gym space, it was so helpful to find just the mentors and the people. So she connected me with so many people back during those days. So that's when I started reading Lori's book. I started listening to Lindsay's podcast, Powerhouse Women, and then Keisha. And Keisha came into my life in the past 6 months. I joined her mastermind because I still had a podcast in my gym. And then the transition of to Mom Boss Maximizer, I was just listening to more women. And I was like, there's a lot more things going on in the world that we need, us women, us mothers, us entrepreneurs, that I want to share. And Maximizer is one of my top 5 strengths with Clifton Strength Finder. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
And it's finding potential in people. That was like the aha moment. And just being able to find more women that honestly I aspire to be and I want to get in more rooms with. That has been in the past year, my influence and my impact.
It's always so cool to hear where people get their inspiration from because I know that, again, there's so many people that we can follow on social media. There's so many people now with courses, programs, masterminds. I get asked a lot of like, how do you know what's right for you? How do you know when you need a coach or a mentor? Or if you're looking to, should I get in the room? I don't know what's the next right step for me to invest if I'm at a certain place. So I always like to ask deeper questions of what is it that you need? And I think that's one of the things that we can help maybe the listener today get clear on is maybe what are your top 3 tips on helping someone navigate that of like, what is it that I need? It all depends on obviously you're going back to your why. What are you creating? What gaps are you looking to fill? But I'd love to hear your perspective on maybe helping someone navigate what they might need in the season that they're in.
I feel like I've been in my own season. So I'm utilizing my own experience of the shifting seasons and really embracing it and not so much looking at it as a win or loss. It's more like a win or learn. And my seasons will shift according to like my children's schedule. And I would say that's been something very big that I've had to adjust to because like just right now, like wanted to slow down more and it's challenging. But at the same time, I know I have to for my nervous system, for my children, and I'm really trying to be present. But when they're navigating seasons, journaling. I noticed in the past when I was not journaling, I was feeling more lost, feeling unproductive, feeling burnt out, and I needed time by myself. So that and really reflecting and finding good questions, like asking myself the really good questions. So when I have been burnt out or have been in a place of just curiosity and all the questions of why, it's not that question of why, it's more so what. So it's really just refiguring out and resetting. like resetting everything from our brain, our body, our nervous system. And what does that look like? It started with my routine, my structure, and how am I doing the inner work? And that can look different for everyone. I wish I could meditate more. I know I shared that with you when we were in the call last week. And I'm just like, I still struggle with that. I feel like I need accountability with that more. And it's making me very, very simple and easy. But my brain is like this. And I know from my human design, I need to be more in my body. So just finding different ways of doing the inner work and having that alone time, like really scheduling out that alone time.
And what she said exactly to the point of what would be helpful, like someone's course or program on meditation, or maybe someone has become a master at meditation because they once struggled with it. I think for me, whenever I've looked for somebody to help support me, it's always like, what am I currently struggling with that I want to learn how to do better? And have they done that? Does their experience support being able to help me in those next few steps? Now, I think when it comes to like life coaching, Brendon Burchard speaks to the fact that we don't necessarily need experience in one arena in order to help somebody. It's again, like you said, it's not the why, it's the what do we need to get out of the way in order for you to take action? Because I do think intuitively we all know what we need if we get quiet enough. It's just a matter of creating that space and time. Like some of the women in your community have said, I don't have the time to do that. It's what takes precedence of importance in your life. Do you have to get a babysitter once a week for you to take an hour or two to yourself? Do you need to stop going to Starbucks for a month in order to invest in that course or program, or get yourself in a room event, right? That costs $400 or $500. Where can you shift your priorities in order to make what you think or what you're telling yourself is the block or the thing you can't have in order to get you where you want to go? Generally, we can cut back on something in order to find space and time for the things that we really want to be doing. And maybe it's not financially the issue. Maybe it's the time, like you talked about. A lot of people claim to be busier than they are, but how much time are we actually wasting? So I always make my clients when they first onboard, that's always the thing, is do a time audit. What are you doing with your time? And are you actually being productive? Because there are so many of us, I would say moms, women in general, do this the worst, is we are the most productive procrastinators there ever once was. We will have to write one short email to our list for the week and we will not do it. But I will do 6 loads of laundry, scrub the baseboards, clean the bathroom.
It's like we work harder.
Exactly.
And we're also giving this advice to other women, but doing it ourselves. Like, why?
Because we're human and we know that if we're high achievers and we at least could say we were productive, then we won't feel as guilty and shameful that we didn't get the one thing done that we needed to get done. So time audits and also just becoming aware, like this one thing is really hard for me to do. That's where like I even start to realize, okay, if you hate doing this one thing, that is okay for you to then figure out how to delegate. Or maybe you can remove it altogether. Maybe you don't have to do that one thing. We talked about in the beginning of this, is a podcast something that is making sense in my business right now? Is the time commitment to creating the content, doing production, posting it, marketing it, doing production, posting it, marketing it? Is it giving me the ROI that I potentially should be getting from the efforts that I'm putting in? One of my good friends, he's really amazing with like time and getting the most productivity out of your short bursts of windows of time. We're both projectors. His name's Matt Gottesman. I've had him on the show a couple times. And he's really good at the Gary Keller, breaking down your goal into the 1-3-5. If you've never looked up how to create a goal out of that, look it up. It's amazing. If it's one goal, I believe it's 3 tasks and 5 priorities, or 5 priorities, 3 tasks, or something like that. I always get it backwards. But he says, though, that in those 5 tasks or 5 priorities or whatever it is, if you are spending an exorbitant amount of time on 1, 2, or 3 of them, but they're not actually producing the results, you should probably stop doing them. But if you're like, well, everyone else has an email list that they nurture 72 times a week. Okay, well, maybe that's not what your audience wants to hear. So it's funny. I always like to put a business spin on some of these because it's relatable content that you guys can say, I'm doing XYZ and it's not giving me the results I think I should be getting from it. Okay, well, it's time to look at that because like Brittany said earlier, everybody is different and we all need different things in different seasons of our life. So if you're a mom and you're looking to be around other boss moms, I think obviously go listen to the podcast, jump into her community, see how you can get supported. I think being in a multitude of different diverse groups has helped me up level to see what's possible and to be able to show me that like in some rooms, I might be more of a top dog, big fish, right? In other rooms, I'm like, oh my God, I am not thinking big enough. They have brilliant ideas. I want to be around more of this energy. So at any given time in any season that we're in, making sure that you're really aware of what it is that you want and need, and then making sure you get yourself in those rooms. That's to me, whether it's a virtual room or whether it's just listening to someone's podcast, but maybe not listening to the same podcast every week thinking it's going to change your life because maybe you listened to it for X amount of time and it's not anymore. Maybe you're now ready to graduate to a different level of a podcast. It's the same thing for workouts and nutrition. We can't do the same thing every single day and expect it to always have the same results. Yeah, I think I'm such a random analogy person.
No, I love that. I just had a workshop on Sunday night and I call the Mom Boss Rhythm System. And it was all about we all need a rhythm. And just like our children need a structure, we also need a structure, both at home and our business. But how many of us have so many tabs open in our brain and we have to just vomit them out on a piece of paper where it was in this system, like what I was saying to all the women on the workshop, everyone has a different season. So I would say at least every 90 days, reevaluate. You have to reevaluate. And just like you were saying, Jess, is you have to delegate some things. I hate doing laundry. I have 4 freaking kids. This is not fun to me. Finding a high schooler to pay $15 an hour to do the laundry has freed up my time. Something like that, the delegating. But in this system, the having this rhythm, it's going to change. And we have to go back to it and shed some shit in order to elevate where we want to go and who we want to be. And I think that's a big thing, kind of like what you were saying, is we're constantly doing, but then we need more being. And what does that being look like? And in these seasons of transitions, what are we doing? What is that action that we're taking? I always say burnout Brit or blizzard Brit. Hey, I'm coming right by, not even talking to, not even present. I want to be blissful Brit. I want to be just peaceful and calm and feeling productive. And that's not going to happen all the time, but I know I have to put something in order and structure in order to be that, in order to have what I want to have for that freedom, whatever that freedom is.
Yeah, it's conscious awareness of making those choices every minute of every day and just staying in awareness that you're in control of all of it. I love that. I love this conversation so much. I think you're amazing, Britt. I love that we've been able to connect. This is a perfect example of 2 women who didn't know each other. And we were in a room full of 75 women with just a short windows of time to connect. We took a moment, we connected, we followed up, we've had a couple connection calls, now we're podcasting. And that's the power of intentional action and intentionally, 1, getting yourself in the room, 2, the follow-up, properly networking. I always talk about how networking is going to expand your personal growth, but also if you're trying to build a business, whether it's a brick and mortar, referral-based business, just creating a visibility with, say, a podcast or anything. Having allies and other women are let's go, girl. There's enough for everybody. That's the energy we want to leave you with today. So hopefully you will go tune in to Brittany's podcast, check that out. And then I always like to tie a bow on the episodes because clearly, girl, you've led a very unscripted life per se, and you're not afraid to flip the script at any time. What would you say is your biggest unscripted moment that maybe comes to mind when it comes to either life or business that you were in the moment, I don't fucking know, but here we go.
Currently, right fucking now. I mean, it was a year ago. It was a year ago. I tore my Achilles. We were going through a crazy custody battle, and that was a lot of personal shit going on. And I was like, I need something to fill up my cup. And that's why I created Mom Boss Maximizer. And it was going off the grain. And it's still a challenge for me to just let go of the guilt and to let go of some things. So that unscripted moment I'm still in the works. My butterfly season, I'm trying to fucking fly, girl. I'm going there. I'm there. I see it. So that is something I'm really proud of because it's another risk. And take the risks, ladies and men, because I know men listening to this too. Yeah, you need the support. Get in the rooms because that has helped the momentum and the confidence.
Yeah. Get in the rooms, take the risk. And I know it can be super scary to ask for help. It's super scary to be the new kid in a room or put yourself out there or say, hey, I want to start a podcast or I want to create a community or I want to do something. But we all have to start somewhere. And I just always hope that I can bring other women on that encourage you, if you're listening, to fill up your own cup first and know that if you are feeling a little bit of a void or you're going through a sticky, hard situation, that you can create things from that place. You don't have to wait till you have it all figured out to start documenting your process of whether it's healing or growing or learning. Sharing that stuff in real time can be the most powerful way that you can connect with people who need you and who you probably need too. Take a little bit for yourself and then know that whatever it is you're willing to share and talk about, you can build conversation and community out of it. So Britt, I love this so much. I can't wait to podcast in your world. I can't wait to see you very soon. You guys, if you love this episode, you already know what to do because, hey, yes, I say it all the time and maybe I shouldn't say it, but I am still one who loves a good dose of validation. So hearing from you on social media that these podcast episodes resonate means the world. It also means even more if you subscribe, maybe leave a rating and review for the show. And if you've got any questions or any conversations you want to hear on the show, let me know. Guys, go follow her on Instagram and on the podcast world. Are you Apple, Spotify, all the places? Yeah.
Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.
Perfect. Awesome. And your Instagram handle, tell the peeps. I'm sure it'll
Brittany.Burnham. I love a good alliteration. You get that? Brittany Burnham. Mom Boss Maximizer. My daughter's name is Skylie Sykes. Bria Burnham. Give me all the alliterations, guys.
Give me all the things I can remember. I love it. All right, guys. We'll see you on the next episode of Unscripted. Keep doing you.